News came through in Brussels this week. A new leader is poised to take over as NATO Secretary General. It's the former Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte who secured the backing of each member state. The only other credible competitor was Romania's President Klaus Iohannis. He's backed out. Now, Teflon Mark is his nickname in The Hague. One biographer said the 57-year-old cycling fanatic has a trademark. It's called mijverin, which means bouncing, stretching along, working with whoever he needs to work with to govern, to rule with. This was Mark Rutte talking to the press in the past 24 hours.
It is, of course, an incredibly interesting position. It starts in 3 months. There is a fantastic Secretary General at the moment. But let me not give the impression that I am going to do something different from Jens Stoltenberg.
What we also know about Mark Rutte, he likes his routine. According to his biographer, he's always in the same cafe on a Saturday in the Netherlands, something that I think will quickly change with security personnel on advice, and also that he loves you too. Let's go to Washington. Let's go to James G. Townsend Jr., a senior advisor at the Scowcroft Centre for Strategy and Security at the Transatlantic Initiative. Great to have you on the programme. And let's first just give me your thoughts and what you know of Mark Rutte, the man.
Well, I know that Mark Rutte, the man, is he's a cool set of hands. He's very steady. He's also a very good politician. He's been in politics and senior levels for a long time. And at NATO, you got to know politics. You got to know how to pull the levers to get 32 nations to do what you want them to do. It's a tough job. I think Mark Rutte is up to it.
I've met Mark Rutte a few times. I've interviewed him a few times. He's always, they call pile poil, absolutely on time. He's very straight to the point, unlike other leaders I've interviewed in the past. No, won't name any particularly, but he has got a sense of humour. Probably going to help in this job because, let's face it, sometimes in the darkness and dark times and intensity he's going to face right now, it's probably going to be a trait that's well needed.
That's exactly right. And there's frustration, too, in getting the allies together. That's something that not just a good politician, but someone with a good sense of humor needs to be able to do.
Give me your reading of Jens Stoltenberg as an outgoing Secretary General in terms of an ability to gather people round him, and whether some people say he's not the most charismatic figure, whether charisma and personality matters in that job.
Well, that's a very interesting point. I think charisma and personality can help. It helps in all of politics. Jens Stoltenberg, I think he is ranked number 2 in terms of how long he has been the Secretary General. And he has faced some tough opponents, not just in terms of Putin and the Russian invasion of Ukraine twice, but also he had to face Donald Trump. And that was another test of his ability to try to pull everyone together, including the United States, when it was headed by a very difficult personality who didn't like NATO. And, Jens Stoltenberg won him over. And I think Mark Rutte, should we be faced with Trump in a second term, I think Mark Rutte will be able to bring him along as well. Stoltenberg is one of the great Secretary Generals at NATO, and we were lucky to have him during this time.
When you say he's one of the great Secretary Generals, just tell me what you think in particular stands out about him. You told me the ability to talk to Trump, but what was it that he had that perhaps others before him didn't, in your view?
He had a way to ensure that nations that had policies as far apart as, say, Turkey on the one hand and Sweden on the other. You had Orban in Hungary. We talked about Trump. The alliance is full of not just allied nations, but personalities. And to maintain your cool and not alienate a head of state, to be able to herd all the cats in one direction while you have someone like Putin staring you down at the end of a gun barrel, that takes a lot of cool. He has that cool, and I think that is what is, charisma aside, I think cool hands is what he will be known for.
I think you've touched upon something about Jens Stoltenberg that perhaps is easily missed within those who say, he perhaps lacks the charisma of grabbing a moment, or that soundbite that, the likes of Trump and others can just grab and electrify and like them or loathe them, they coin a phrase that is remembered. But with Jens Stoltenberg, his father, remember, was the foreign minister for Norway, and he talks about in the past how he's pioneered as a child kitchen diplomacy, that he'd bring all of these foreign leaders around. He once sat for breakfast, he said, with Nelson Mandela in years gone by. And you think about character-forming traits, you show me the boy at 7, I'll show you the man. That was already starting to form there. Now we see with Mark Rutte, you mentioned that ability to gather and engage with people. He also is said to have a good relationship, not just with President Biden, but President Trump previously. And Wana Lungescu, who's the former press advisor to Stoltenberg, tweeted in the past few hours to say that is something rare amongst European politicians, to have both sides of the US speaking to you.
That's very, very true. And I think that's why Rutte, his time has come. He has wanted to be SecGen for a while, and things were not breaking his way. And it was tough. As you know, Hungary held out. They weren't quite, they wanted to extract some concessions before they would approve Rutte. But I think Rutte, because of what you just talked about, those are the makings of another great Secretary General. And again, charisma is helpful, and a sense of humor is helpful, and all of that too. But you don't want to be a Secretary General that always makes headlines, because and the alliance with 32 members, that will always upset someone. And I think one thing that Stoltenberg did, he was able to thread the needle and bring everyone along without alienating any ally. When he leaves NATO headquarters, all the allies will be throwing roses his way.
Look, if you mentioned world leaders, I'm interested, 2 points here. If you mentioned, say, obviously President Putin, but if you mentioned President Macron to your average member of the public in the US, you would imagine many people have heard of him. How much of a known figure, is Mark Rutte amongst politicians and amongst the ordinary public?
In the United States, I don't think he's probably well known at all. And again, for the United States, that's not so unusual. There's not many heads of state and government that the average American is going to know about. Macron, though, is known, and he's admired here in the U.S. But in terms of Rutte, I think he will become well known because as the tensions continue to increase in Europe, I think Mark Rutte's face will be known to people who watch the news here in the United States and read the newspapers and will want to see just what this new Secretary General is made of. So I think he will become known. He's not there yet.
A final thought from you, which I'd be very interested to hear. I know from speaking to him in the past in interviews and talking to his advisors that he does like a particular style of life. It's well reported as well in his biography that he goes to the same restaurants, he cycles everywhere in The Hague. And I just wonder how much his life is suddenly going to change when you take on the head of NATO.
Well, his life is going to change. If he's going to be cycling anywhere in Brussels, he'll have a big security contingent all around him. So I'm not sure how good that cycling atmosphere will be for him. But he's going to be really busy. And I mean, that's an understatement. He's got a war on his hands. He's got 32 allies who are in governments that right now are having elections, like in the United States, like in France. We are at a place of political turmoil, and the Secretary General has to handle that political turmoil. He's not just looking at the Russians and the Chinese. He's also looking at European politics in the European Union, as well as in Washington. That's going to take a lot of his time. And on top of that, he's having to deal with the military implications of this war in Europe, too. So I do hope that he, just for his own mental well-being, that he can carve some time out to ride his bike, to go to a cafe, to try to relax, because there's going to be a lot of demand on him, and he won't get much of a honeymoon, I'm afraid. He's going to run right into a lot of work when the Jens Stoltenberg leaves Brussels and heads back to Norway.
So enjoy the coffees now before October the 7th, or the Koffie verkeerd, as the Dutch say. And that's maybe why the Miverin comes in, able to move and shake and actually make people work. Great to talk to you, James J. Townsend, on the programme. We'll talk to you again soon, no doubt, when he takes up the job, particularly from the Atlantic Council. Thanks for your time.
I look forward to it.